Welcome to the Safe Money Retirement Show with certified financial fiduciary Tim Wood.
Let's sit down and make an actual plan, and we have definitely got to factor in that retirement danger zone. I wish to God someone had sat down and done that with my dad. We wish we would have known about these things.
Tim is a retirement and income planning expert, best-selling author, and the founder of SafeMoneyRetirement.com. Tim focuses on wealth management, retirement income, tax and long-term care planning, and so much more.
Today is your opportunity to build the tomorrow you want. You've got an 87% chance of success. Well, son, that's a 13% chance of failure.
And now, the Safe Money Retirement Show with Tim Wood.
And we welcome you into this week's edition of the Safe Money Retirement Show. Alongside Tim Wood, the founder, president, and certified financial fiduciary with Safe Money Retirement. My name's Kevin McAlpin. We hope you're having a great day. And as always, Tim and I thank you so much for joining us once again on the show. First things first, we do say hello to the star of the show and my good buddy, Mr. Tim Wood. And Tim, it's always a pleasure. I hope you're doing well today, sir.
I am doing well, Kevin. I hope you are as well, and I hope everyone listening is doing well and enjoying this real quick, brief, warm period that we're having. I don't know how long it's going to last because I think there may be more cold right behind it, literally. But it's nice to at least have a little short period of warmth before the spring really gets here.
Well, listen, Tim, I know as we come out of that hibernation, we've seen some really wild things happening, especially with what's going on Wall Street here in the first couple of months of the new year. We know when things get volatile, it can also be risky to try to time the market, something that I'm sure you've experienced with clients over the years, right? Trying to figure out, I want to play this piece of sound for you pertinent to what we're talking about. This is wealth advisor Lawrence Sprung, and he was recently on Yahoo Finance, and he said, you really don't have to look all that far in the rear view mirror to see how risky things can get.
And if you look at it, most down and up days are clustered together. Since 2000, if you invested in just the S&P, you averaged 9.8% return. But if you just miss the 10 best days over that period, just 10 days, your return goes to a negative 12.5%.
And that's on an annual basis.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So trying to time things and going in and out, it's not that fruitful, especially most people are not professional traders that they can time that really effectively.
Yeah, it's really hard to time the market. We know that. But Tim, let's talk to those listeners out there. They're approaching retirement, right? They're not in their 30s or 40s. They don't have that runway to pick back up if things go south. So why is it that much more risky to time the market if, let's say, you're 3, 4, 5 years away from retirement?
It absolutely is then, but I'll tell you, for people that have read my book, and if you haven't, again, log on to our website, SafeMoneyRetirement.com, and get a copy of it. But if you have, you know the story of what happened to my dad. And that's exactly what happened to my dad. My dad retired, I guess I can say the first time, what he thought was retirement in 2000. Well, most people listening remember 2000 to 2004. It was brutal. Mm-hmm. Well, he was at the same time taking withdrawals. So that's the first thing that I would say in relation to that soundbite is timing matters more once you start withdrawals. So my dad, not only did the market go down by over 50% in those 4 years, but he was withdrawing. That's how he wound up with he had more than 75% of his retirement gone in 4 years. So he was left with, he started with a nice big mid 6-figure retirement account. And at the end of those 4 years, he was down to a 5-figure savings account and went back to work for a decade. That's what we want to make sure that we avoid. And it's the same whether even if someone's a few years from retirement, and it's because of the time horizon. People don't understand. It's that pesky market math we've talked about before, Kevin. You know, if someone loses 30% in the market, oh, no big deal. It'll come back 30%. Okay. Well, let's do some math on that. If you got 100,000, you lose 30%, you're down to 70. Simple math. Oh, no problem. It'll come back 30%. Well, what happens if we add 30% to 70? 3 times 7 is 21. 21 plus 70 is 91. That puts you to 91,000. You're still 9,000 short of just getting back to where you were if you lose 30 and gain 30. If you lose 30, you need between 42 and 43% just to get back to even. If you lose 50, you need 100%. And over 50 goes up exponentially beyond that. So it's the time horizon. If you're in your 20s or 30s and the market crashes, is it awful? Yes. But you got plenty of time to make it up. It's all right. I mean, it's not all right, but it's all right. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
But if you're in your late 50s, 60s, even worse, 70s, and God forbid 80s, and that happens, man, that's not all right, because your time horizon is that much shorter, and it's going to make you either not have the retirement that you should have, or it's going to force you to go back to work just to be able to survive. And I've got so many clients that have had to do that because they didn't time it properly. And that's why I'm not trying to beat a dead horse or keep thumping the drum here, but man, now's a really good time. Because the market is still relatively, it's not at the highest it's ever been, but we really haven't had that massive crash yet. So it's still a really good time to get out of positions and into something that either is going to pay you guaranteed income or have growth with no chance of losses, or whatever it is that you're going to need for your retirement. Now's a really great time to do that while the market is still up. So those are two things. First of all, timing matters a whole lot once withdrawals begin. You don't have that big of a time horizon in retirement. And there's something called sequence of returns risk. Sequence of returns risk. That's easy for me to say, isn't it?
Right.
It's actually, there's a whole section and one of the things in my book shows sequence of returns risk. And basically it shows from 2000 to 2020, the actual S&P, and based on when you retired, if you retired right in 2000, with, I don't remember what the thing is in the book, but something like $1 million, by the end, you're going to be down to almost nothing at the end of 2020 if you're taking out 4%. But if you retired at a different time, you're going to be fine. So it really depends on when that market crash is going to happen. And if it's going to happen within the first few years of your retirement, it can absolutely be devastating. Again, there's a whole section in my book that talks about it. If you don't have it, get it. It'll explain all of that. And then the last thing that I will say is actual income planning, which again, y'all have heard me say over and over, income is what brings happiness in retirement. Assets bring stress. Income brings happiness. So income planning can reduce the need to time the market, because we can go ahead, pull that money out while the market's still relatively high, and get you a guaranteed income that's going to actually cover that gap between what's social and where you want to be. And it's guaranteed. You don't have to worry about what the market is. You don't have to worry about, is 4% going to be too high? And should I adjust that for inflation? And what happens if the market crashes? You don't have to worry about any of that garbage. It doesn't matter. And we've got plans that pay significantly more than 4% guaranteed. So, once someone sits down and really looks at what we're trying to do, for most people, it makes a whole heck of a lot of sense.
Tim mentioned his book. It's called Safe Money Retirement, Your Game Plan for Success. If you haven't gotten your copy, visit safemoneyretirement.com. Again, it's safemoneyretirement.com. Tim, I know a lot of folks listening, whether they're retired or maybe they're pre-retirees, obviously your number one fear is outliving your money. We've talked about that. So, that fear of losing money, some folks will just say, you know what, whether the market's going down, maybe I just need to move to cash. How do you help listeners balance that, that fear of, oh my gosh, is the market going to take a dive, with that need for continued growth as we go throughout retirement?
Well, the first thing that popped into my head when you said that is cash is great. Yeah. I mean, cash is fantastic. But the problem is cash is not keeping up with inflation. So if you just go to cash, you aren't keeping yourself level where you are. For example, let's say you had $100,000 and you just put that in a bank account. Well, a bank account might pay you a tiny little bit, but very, very, very little. So let's even go above and beyond and say it pays you a whole percent. So at the end of that year, you're now at $101,000. Whoa, well, I did great, man. I haven't lost any and I made $1,000. But inflation was 3.5%. So now you don't have 101,000 in buying power. If you do the math, you're now down to 98,500 in buying power. So you've got to really look. We've got to make sure that you've got enough growth to overcome any issues with inflation. And if we're going to just do a guaranteed income plan that's just a guaranteed set income, what we need to do is we need to have some of the smaller plans. And again, I talk about this in my book, that you can just let grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. And at some point in the future, if you ever need more income, boom, we turn it on, and that gets you the more income that you need. And if you don't ever turn it on, then congratulations, someone's getting a very nice death benefit when you pass away.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, if you'd like to learn more, maybe you're trying to time the market as you get closer to retirement, and you want to sit down with somebody who does this day in and day out. He's Tim Wood, the founder, president, and certified financial fiduciary with Safe Money Retirement. You can always visit him online at safemoneyretirement.com. 800-913-SAFE. That's 800-913-7233. Once again, that website, folks, is safemoneyretirement.com.
It's now time for our Safe Money Story of the Week. Visit safemoneystories.com to view more.
For this week's Safe Money Story of the Week, what I actually want to discuss is something we were just talking about, and that's timing. So I just had an incredible couple, really, really cool people sitting in my office here in Johnson City. This was last week, and that's exactly what they were worried about. They built up a pretty decent nest egg. It was healthy. It was very nice, but they can see the handwriting on the wall. You know, it's kind of like I grew up in Florida, and when the hurricane's coming and you can see the clouds on the horizon, that's not the time to go out and skateboard. You know what I'm saying? That's right. Not the time to go grab your golf clubs. So they can see the storm clouds on the horizon with everything going on. That's exactly what we did, is we were able to secure that money, get it out of a position of all at risk, which is where it was. And there actually 4 different places but all were at risk. Mm-hmm. Now, are all of those type of plans 100% at risk? Not necessarily. We need to look and see how they are, what exactly they're in. But a good portion of them are 100% at risk. And if the market goes down 30%, guess what? So does your account. So we looked at that, brought them both in. They were concerned about that, and what they needed was guaranteed income. They had a significant gap. They wanted to have, I'll be honest, they wanted quite a bit of spending money. They wanted to, y'all have heard me say before that I have had so many clients in the past that, didn't join the country club and didn't go to Hawaii and didn't do this and didn't do that because they didn't want to run out of money. And then when they died, and guess what their son does or their daughter does? They join the country club, they go to Hawaii, they do all the things with mom and dad's money. Well, these people, their kids were just fine. One of the kids was a doctor, and the other one was like an accountant or something like that, engineer something. They've got plenty of money. They're doing just fine for themselves. We wanted to set them up for their success. So between their Social Securities and we got them a sizable guaranteed lifetime income plan. And then we are also adding a few of those smaller income plans with the guaranteed roll-up. So they're going to take the big lifetime guaranteed income plan and turn that on immediately at retirement. That plus their social actually gets them a little over $2,000 a month on top of their bills. So they're going to have play money. $2,000 a month. I mean, you can do you could do a nice trip once a quarter with $2,000, extra dollars a month, or give it away, or whatever you want to do. I mean, whatever you want to do listening, but it gave them that option. And then we also got them a couple of those smaller plans that are just going to roll up, because maybe at some point they do need more income. It will give them the ability to turn that on. And then if they don't ever, then it would just go as a death benefit. They left completely happy. And I mean, you can just see the relief. You could almost literally see his shoulders just go, oh. When I showed him, I said, here's exactly how it's going to work. Here's how much you're going to get. Well, when's that going to stop? When both of y'all stop breathing. Mm-hmm. That's when it's going to stop. Yeah. So it's never going to stop until then. No, it's not going to stop until y'all are done breathing. And then even then, if there's any money left in the account at that point, then that's still going to go to whoever you name as your beneficiary. Now, conversely, if you've outlived the money, then there's nothing left to go to the beneficiary. But then your beneficiaries aren't ever having to give you money in your old age. It's still coming from that income plan that we set up and Social Security. So anyway, they left totally happy. They've actually already, I've got someone tomorrow that they referred that's kind of in the exact same situation. So they left totally happy, knowing that they were going to have enough income to turn on in the future. And then actually they still had a little bit that they are still leaving in the market because he liked playing in the market. And I said, we don't have to do 100% with this. If you still want to play in the market, son, go get it. You might still hit it rich. You might get that penny stock that turns, blows up. Go. But we need to make sure that what y'all have to have is protected. The income is protected. It's going to be there no matter what. I'll tell you, he was happy. His wife was really happy. She was really into the security of having that and knowing that, God forbid, something happens to him, she still gets that same amount, 100%, for as long as she's breathing.
It's like they say all the time, it might feel cliched, Happy wife, happy life. And if you'd like to learn more, if you're in a similar situation, you'd like more details about those guaranteed lifetime income plans or those roll-up plans like Tim mentioned just a few moments ago, you can always reach him at safemoneyretirement.com, safemoneystories.com. All right, we'll step aside for a quick break, but don't go anywhere. We got a lot more of this week's edition of the Safe Money Retirement Show with Tim Wood, and it's coming up right after this.
Hi, it's Glenn Beck. You've heard me talk about Tim Wood, certified financial fiduciary and owner of Safe Money Retirement for a while now. But what I haven't told you is that he's also a retirement income certified professional. Now, why should you care? Well, maybe you have pre-tax and after-tax retirement accounts, and you need to know how that's going to work. Or maybe you still don't have enough guaranteed lifetime income to cover your monthly bills. Or maybe your entire savings is still exposed to risk. Listen, I met Tim personally, and I can tell you that his team can help you. I want you to write this down, safemoneyretirement.com/Beck.
Or call 800-913-SAFE to schedule a no-obligation, free 15-minute discovery call with Tim.
You know I don't trust just anyone. So do your own homework on Tim Wood at safemoneyretirement.com/Beck and request a copy of his best-selling book.
800-913-SAFE.
safemoneyretirement.com/Beck. Get started today.
It is the Safe Money Retirement Show, and we are here with Tim Wood, founder, president, and certified financial fiduciary with SafeMoneyRetirement.com. My name's Kevin McAlpin. Hope you're having a great one. And of course, Tim and I appreciate each and every one of you. We know we have so many loyal listeners out there, and we thank you so much for joining us once again on the show. So, Tim, let's dive back into it, man, because I saw a really interesting poll here recently. This one came out from Talker Research. Shows that half of Americans are trying to disconnect from the digital world. They're reading hardbound books, believe it or not. They're playing board games. They're using real alarm clocks and even paper calendars. Oh, by the way, they're also listening to the radio. Thank you very much, everybody. And they're listening to vinyl, analog music. So why are so many people out there doing this? Well, Tim, they say less stress. And this got me thinking to what you do day in and day out. If we're simplifying our everyday lives, shouldn't we be doing something similar when it comes to our retirement planning?
I 100% think that we should, and I agree with all of those people. I'm actually surprised that shows half of Americans are trying to disconnect because, I mean, you can walk around anywhere and it seems like all you see are the zombies scrolling on their phone as they're walking and bumping into things.
Yeah.
So, but I'm totally down with that, and that's why I send people an actual paperback copy of my book. Now, do I have digital? Absolutely. Do I have it on Audible? You can listen to me read it. Sure. But if you're old school like me, you'd rather have an actual paper copy. I would say one of the reasons is with retirement is trying to get into something that's less complex. I have people all the time come in. I'm telling you, they literally will just bring a stack of papers and just boom, right down on the desk and say, here's all this garbage I've got, man. It's in, like the person I was just talking about a few minutes ago, it's in all these different accounts.
Right.
You know, some's here, well, some's this and that. Make it simple. What's your income going to be with Social Security? Great. How much do we need to get to your expenses or to what you want your income to be? Great. Let's do a plan for that. It's done. Mm-hmm. Whenever you want to turn on the income, we do one form, the income starts dropping in your account, and it's done. Makes it very simple. It's not necessarily, I wouldn't say it's a do-it-yourself fix. You need to sit down with someone that knows what they're doing, but trying to keep things simple in retirement, I think it's always smarter, and it gives you a little bit more of a clearer picture of where your money is and where you're going. You know, you always want to have a map for where you're going. You know, if you and I were going on a trip, we would want to have a map or a GPS or something to know where the heck we're going. And having this kind of a plan that we do for people gives them a map. I mean, we do a plan for people out to age 100. So let's look at your expenses. Let's add in inflation. Let's look at your Social Security. Let's add in the cost of living adjustment every single year. And let's project that all the way down and see if at any point you're going to have a deficit. And if you are, we need to plan for that. You know, some people are going to have a deficit day one. Well, let's fix it. Some people, the deficit's going to kick in year 8. Well, then let's set up a plan that can grow for 8 years. And then in year 8, it's going to kick in. Let's set a definite plan so you know, and it gives you a clearer picture of where things are going. And it also just kind of makes the income planning a little easier when you've got that plan. So, I mean, basically doing something and doing it the easy way will allow you to have more enjoyment in retirement. And y'all hear me beat this dead horse every single week. Happiness in retirement, Kevin, where do I always say it comes from?
Oh, it comes from money. It comes from the green.
Guaranteed income.
Guaranteed income, money.
Having that guaranteed income is what brings happiness in retirement.
Yeah.
So let's get you happy in retirement. That's the whole point.
Right.
Y'all have worked your entire life to get to retirement.
Well, if you'd like to learn more, you'd like to schedule that Fact Finder appointment with Tim Wood. You hear him on the show each and every week. He's the founder, president, and certified financial fiduciary with Safe Money Retirement. Folks, keep this number handy. 800-913-SAFE. That's 800-913-7233 or online anytime. Again, that website, folks, is safemoneyretirement.com. Safemoneyretirement.com. So speaking of new surveys, I saw this one recently from TIAA. Finds that nearly 2/3 of Americans say retiring between 65 and 70 is unattainable. They plan to work until they physically can't. Now, what's that number one reason? Well, it's replacing the guaranteed income that came along with that paycheck a couple of times a month because Social Security is not enough. So, Tim, for our listeners today, they've saved but don't think it's enough. Walk us through that process. How do you determine? Because as we know, everyone's situation is completely unique.
That's right. And I have people come in all the time that think they don't have enough. This just happened. I mean, I know we've already done our Safe Money story of the week, but just a couple of weeks ago, I had someone come in and they only had 180,000, something like that, altogether saved. So they thought they were hosed. They thought they were never going to be able to retire. But the good thing is their expenses were so low. Their expenses were only like $18,000 a year.
Wow.
Total.
Wow.
Including everything. So they didn't need a whole heck of a lot, and they already had social. So we gave them a small income plan. We didn't even take all of that 180 because they didn't need it. And they're going to have plenty, and he's able to retire and left incredibly happy. So, yeah, I would say that the top barrier to people being able to retire and what they're afraid of is that income shortfall, right? Running out of money before they run out of life. The thing that most people are scared of. People are more scared of that than they are of death, according to recent surveys that I've seen. So that's why I beat the drum of guaranteed income so much, brother. That's it. That's it right there. Because that's what people are afraid of, is not having enough guaranteed income. And another thing that I've read is that about 30% of people aren't confident they can cover their basic expenses in retirement. And 92% of people want guaranteed income beyond Social Security. That's what we do. That's it right there. So let's sit you down. Let's see where you're at. Let's see where your expenses really. And that's a whole other thing. I've got so many people that come in and the first thing I ask is, well, what's your expenses? I don't know. We just pay the bills. Okay. While you were working, maybe that worked. You know, while you were a teenager, that's fine. We've got to know what your expenses are. When you're in retirement, you are on a set income. We need to make a plan, a solid plan, and know that you can do it. So having that confidence and having that guaranteed income is absolutely huge. And then there's also, you know, another thing to consider for people is their personal savings goals. Some people want to have a lot of money saved and a huge pile of money in case something happens, and some people don't. Again, that's something that we go over in the Fact Finder appointment. It's making an overall plan. Listen, I'm not just, I'm going to use the S word. I'm not just trying to sell somebody a plan. Okay. That's not what I'm doing. There's people that come in here and I say, you know what you're doing is 100% what you should be doing. Congratulations. If you ever have any questions, you holler at me. That really happens, people. I'm going to look at your whole situation. We're going to look at everything. And if I'm going to suggest something, I am going to give you exact reasons why I suggest what I suggest, how it's going to work, the financials for the company, A to Z, how it's going to work, walk you through the entire process, make sure the money is moved with absolutely no tax consequence to you, and make sure that you can make whatever your goals are in retirement. Let's help you get there, and let's help you get there with guaranteed plans, not plans that, or like you've heard me say before, if come plans that could go away if there's a market crash, or should I say when there's the next market crash, because we all know it's coming sooner or later. You're talking about making that transition from acquisition, saving, to distribution, using. And that's a big mind shift. And some people never make it. And those are the people that a lot of times, honest to God, I'm just being serious, those are the ones that still wind up working in their 70s and 80s because they haven't made that shift. They think, I still got to bring more money, bring more money, bring more money. I still got to grow. That's not the point in retirement. In retirement, it's making sure you've got enough guaranteed income so you never have to worry about your bills again and enjoying your life. That's what retirement's about.
And if you'd like to start that journey today, the number to reach Tim Wood and the team at Safe Money Retirement is 800-913-SAFE. That's 800-913-7233 or online anytime at safemoneyretirement.com. And don't forget, if you haven't gotten a copy of that book, Safe Money Retirement, Your Game Plan for Success, visit safemoneyretirement.com. So, Tim, it's been another enjoyable show this weekend, my friend. And before we do run out of time, sir, the floor is once again all yours for the final word.
Thanks, Kevin. Hope everyone enjoyed the show today. I thought it went great. Talked about several things that were really important. The most recent thing we talked about there was people thinking they weren't going to have enough to retire, and what can you do to make that better? Okay, that's absolutely something we need to look at. Before that, we talked about people trying to simplify their life and getting away from all the electronics and, just simplifying everything. Is that important? You better believe it's important. But I'm going to go all the way back. If y'all can remember at the very beginning of this show, we talked about timing. The reason that is such an important thing for me is because of what happened to my dad. If y'all don't already have a copy of my book, get a copy of my book. And in the very first chapter, you're going to read the story of my dad and what happened and how he had to go back to work. And honestly, how his demeanor just changed. I've got that in the book. I mean, he went from, well, you can imagine going from having, a good solid mid-6-figure retirement plan going down to a 5-figure savings plan basically in 4 years. How would that make you feel? Well, that's what happened. Timing is everything. When that market is going to go down is everything. It's called sequence of returns risk. If you're not familiar with it, get my book and read about it or Google it. I don't care. Sequence of returns risk. It's all about timing in the market, and how you time things is going to determine whether or not you have your own safe money retirement.
The preceding information does not represent tax, legal, or investment advice. Obviously, by contacting us now, you are only taking the first step towards protecting your retirement. No information presented today should be acted upon without meeting with a qualified, licensed insurance professional. It is important that you read all insurance contract disclosures carefully before making a purchase decision. Interest and other guarantees in annuity contracts are subject to the claims-paying ability of the insurance carrier that issued the contract. The tax consequences of annuity income should be considered with the help of a licensed tax professional. Rates and returns mentioned on this program may vary based on state availability and are subject to change without notice.